Hey guys, it's Vandiazzo back on Carpe Vanguard DZ Set 7 deck profile. So if you guys enjoyed, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and story. Today we are covering Set 7's Aggro Sirens for Stoicheia. So this is the Battle Siren deck, which gives Battle Sirens, aka the support cards that every Aquaforce deck has had since the dawn of time, the spotlight they finally deserve, like how, rudely enough, Akane finally got the spotlight she deserved in the form of Pound Razor. This has been an interesting set in hindsight. But either way though, now this deck gets to focus on the Aquaforce theme of multi-attacking, but we mainly focus on the aggro side, which is just spam the board while multi-attacking. So let's get this started, shall we, and see what we got, because honestly this deck is interesting. First up, we have our energy generator. It's our ride deck crest. You remember ride deck crest in your ride deck. Auto ride deck, when you would ride, put this card into your crest zone. If you want a second energy charge 3, continues to may have energy all begin ride phase, energy charge 3, then act once per turn, energy blast 7, draw a card. All around pretty solid. You get a free 3 energy every turn, which is actually very vital in this deck because the main grade 3 does use energy. So does one of our best support cards, but don't worry, the deck has a way to use energy and CB actually in a very consistent, well manner, that unless your opponent is actively CB starving you the entire game, and by actively CB starving you I mean they're giving you less than 1 CB a turn, you're going to be able to use your resources just fine. But if you end up having extra energy, which would be very surprising, but if you did, you can energy blast 7 to draw a card, which is a very solid option. But most of the time you're just going to save that energy for the Vanguard and you're supporting grade 3. Moving on to our starter, we have Aggro Siren Rotilis. Grades of boost, 5 Kashiosuke base, auto rope, have a second draw card, standard starter, nothing too special about it, just a free draw if you go second. This card is actually required in the deck because the ride line is one of the ride lines where it focuses on being placed and then needs the specific card in soul. So therefore Rotilis is actually required in this deck, so it's our nice one of as a starter. Moving on to our Overtrigger, we have Source Dragon Deity of Blessings, Bless Favor. Grades of boost, 50k shield, 5k power, Overtrigger, more Overtrigger in your deck. We're going to build as a trigger, move that card to draw a card and choose whatever it gets plus money for a turn. If you able to check activate its addition effect, would you get to draw a card, someone gets a crit, you front row gets 10k, and you get to heal one if you have more damage than your opponent or if you have equal damage to your opponent. I like Bless Favor a lot because it's an everything bagel. Regardless if you drive check or damage check this, someone's getting a mill and you're getting a free draw. But if you drove check this, on top of the free draw and the mill, you get a second draw, so you get 2 hand cards, someone gets a crit, either the Vanguard or the thing that's getting the million, your front row gets 10k, so much more pressure to the opponent, especially if you only needed a 1 to pass on the Vanguard. You now don't have to put the million on the Vanguard, you can just put the million on someone else and everyone will still get the 10k, and then you possibly get to heal as well. All around, I love using Bless Favor. It's my favorite Overtrigger to sack because it doesn't guarantee you the win, it just applies a hell lot of pressure to your opponent. But if you want to run Volna for more consistent multi-attacking, which I could definitely see, or you want to run Asfaria for recycling, or even the Dark Overtrigger for healing and calling, you can, but I prefer Bless Favor because it's really fun to play with, so one of him. Then we move on to our normal triggers. We run a total of 7 crit, 3 copies of Peppery Pepper, grades of a boost, 50k shield, 5k power. You can make this any crit you want. I choose to make a Peppery Pepper because why not? Then we have 4 copies of Aspiring Maiden Alana, grades of a boost, 50k shield, 4k power, critical trigger, auto rear guard, about a boosted, shove it to soul, choose a music, get 2k for the turn, so you know someone gets 2k, which is nice. You don't really need to worry too much about this crit. If you want to make it a vanilla crit, so worst case, if you did have to call crit to board, this is a 5k base, you can. I choose to make it Alana in case I don't see any of my typical soul chargers, because this deck does run into an occasional soul problem. I mean, like, it's never happened, but it has gotten to that point where if I didn't have XYZ soul charger, I wouldn't have been able to do skills. So Alana's here is just in case, but again, you can afford to run her as a vanilla crit if you want to. Either way though, I do recommend 7 crit for the pressure since it is a multi-attack deck. Next up is our front trigger, Frenzied Harris, who I think is very vital for multi-attack decks because you always have to debate which attack is going to be stronger between the first attack and the second. And Frenzied Harris is a nice card for defense with her continuous guard circle ability to be a 20k shield once your opponent hits grade 3, but also being able to give plus 10k to your front row when your Vanguard attacks when you see it in your drive check is pretty great too, because your Vanguard, also being one of the units that attacks, might end up being weaker on its first or second swing, so being able to add more numbers overall is great. So I like to have 4 fronts for defensive pressure, and then 4 heals in Cheery Support Elf, grades of a boost, 50k shield, 5k power. You can make this any heal you want. I choose to make it Cheery Support Elf because she came out at the exact same time that Peppery Pepper did, and because Peppery Pepper's in this deck, obviously Cheery Support Elf comes with him. On to our grade 1s. Typically, I change my order of how we do orders in decks depending on what the deck does, but since the orders are actually important, I'm going to put at least the grade 1 order at the front, which is Carthros Ode. So it's a grade 1 set order. This deck focuses on having a bunch of set orders on your board. After set orders play, put it to your order zone. Play it by Soul Blasting 1 if your Vanguard's an Argo Siren. Auto when put into order zone, check the top 7, choose up to 1 card from among them, reveal it, put that card into your hand if it's a Tiding card, and call it to rear guard if it's a unit card that has Argo Siren in its card name, grade less than or equal to your Vanguard, and shuffle your deck. On top of that, auto when it's bound from your order zone by the ability of your grade 3 or greater Vanguard Argo Siren in the card name, you choose a rear guard and stand it. all around is pretty good. It only costs 1 soul boss, but again, it can lead into a soul problem. Thankfully, the next 2 cards we're going to go over both can fix that soul problem, but in case you don't see them, be careful with how you use your soul. But you'll always be able to check the top 7 and hopefully be able to call an Argo Siren from among them to get extra rear guard pressure, and if you get really lucky in the early game, you can get a full board out within 5 seconds. On top of that, when it's bound, it does allow you to restand your rear guards, allowing you for some free multi-attack. It makes for a very solid order, so I like having it in the deck as a 4-of. On top of that, again, it can also fetch another Tiding, so worst case scenario, if you can't get a rear guard, it also gets you another order that you can use for next turn. Moving on to our grade 1s, we have 3 copies of Prized Trident, one of our ways to fix our soul problems. Grade 1 boost, 5 Kashot, aka Baze, all to rear guard when your other unit attacks if it's the 5th battle of that turn specifically, show the unit to soul countercharge 1. Unfortunately, this card does not come alive until both players are at grade 3, because the only way to do 5 attacks in this deck is for both players to be at grade 3. But once they are, this card immediately can go into your soul and get you Counterblast back, which is great in a deck that has 3 different cards that can use up CB. So being able to get your CB back is nice, but also being able to go into soul, so therefore you can counteract the soul blast cost with this, makes it even a little bit better. But again, this is not active until both players get to grade 3. It doesn't want to see too often because you might end up breaking with it. It's also not an aggro Siren either, so it could make you see less aggro Sirens, so I have it in here as a 3-of. That takes us to 4 copies of aggro Siren Melson. Grade 1 boost, 5 Kishod, aka Base, all to rear guard at the amount that she boosted a Tear Dragon, put her to soul, and she gives one of your units plus 5,000 power for the turn. All around, that's pretty solid because she just has to boost specifically a Tear Dragon, but she goes to soul for free, doesn't matter what grade either player is at, and not to mention the fact that someone gets 5k, so it could be the Vanguard, it could be a rear guard that you're going to stand instead of the unit that she boosted, or maybe it's going to be the unit that she did boost because it's going to stand once the Vanguard swings. All around, Melson makes for a really good grade 1 and a very nice card to boost with on your restanding attack, which is nice. The thing I also love about the aggro Sirens too is that they're supported by Tear Dragons, which typically the Battle Sirens support, such as Maelstrom or Tetra Drive. So I think it's really cool here that now the Tear Dragons are returning the favor and supporting the Battle Sirens who normally support them. All around, Melson makes for a really good grade 1 though. She goes to soul, she gets someone 5k. It's a good 4 for me. That takes us over to aggro Siren Sinnoh. Grade 1 boost, 5 Kishot, aka Base, all to one place on rear guard circle. If your Vanguard's an aggro Siren, CB1 to search your deck or drop zone for up to 1 Tiding card, reveal it, put it to your hand. If you search your deck, you shuffle it. Pretty cool. She can get you a Tiding card from anywhere, which means if you're gonna ditch one for Rydek, you can just fetch it right back. Typically, I like to get the ones from deck first though, to deck then, also because the Vanguard can actually place Tiding cards from drop zone, which is nice. But hey, you know, it's still a great way to get Tiding cards, and she can proc it regardless of a grade yet, as long as your Vanguard's an aggro Siren. So the second you hit grade 2, if your opponent gave you a damage, there you go. Then continuous rear guard. If your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 guard and the Tiding card was put into your order zone this turn, doesn't matter if you played it via just normal playing it via the cost, hence why this card also says put, or if it was played by an ability such as your main grade 3, she'll get 5,000 power. Cool. Very easy 13k base that you can get while the opponent Vanguard's a grade 3 greater. The best part is that ability would work if you found a way to set an order during your opponent's turn, meaning you could put her in the front row and she'd be at 13k. Does this deck have a way to do that during the opponent's turn? No, but if it did, she could be at 13k during both players' turns. Either way, though, being able to search out a Tiding card on place from either deck or drop zone is great, and being a 13k base once your opponent is at grade 3, and just by simply playing an order makes her just a good grade 1 support card to have, so 4 of Sinnoh. Then we have 4 copies of our PG and Honeycomb Thyrus. Grade 1 boost, 0 souls, K base, continue sentinel, your 4 sentinels and deck, and also put on guard circle. Choose on views, it cannot be hit, ton about it. If your hand has 2 or more cards in it, choose a card from your hand and discard it. Standard PG, nothing too special about it. Basically means if this only one of the cards in your hand placed on guard circle, you don't have to discard one's great, because that means you be as aggressive as you want in the early game. Try to spam these 2. You know, you might end up drawing Sinnoh who you want to save for CB, but otherwise try to spam these 2 to pressure out your opponent, and then your opponent eventually counterattacks you. Throw it on Thyrus, give him the middle finger, and you'll be good to go. All around, it's a nice PG to have for when your opponent tries to aggro you back after you try to aggro them in the early game and you fail to knock them down, and then hopefully they threw out too much of their resources trying to attack you that you can finish them off on your grade 3 turn with 2 attacks, one of them being from the Vanguard. So either way, the PG is just to have. You can run Planet Prevented Dragon or Custodial Dragon because they have the exact same skill as Thyrus. I choose to make it Thyrus though because she came out closer to the time of aggro Siren's release. Then not aggro, Argo. I don't know why I keep saying aggro, but I mean that's exactly what they're supposed to be, aggro. But next up is our last grade 1 in the deck, one of in the ride deck, none in the main deck of Argo, Siren, Arima. Grade 1 boost, Valka Shield, aka base, auto when placed by riding from Argo, Siren, Rotilis. Reveal a grade 3 card, Argo, Siren, in the card name from the ride deck. To search your deck for up to one tiding card, reveal it, put it to hand, and shuffle the deck, and then auto back or rear guard circle once per turn when your unit in the same column as her stands by a card ability. If your Vanguard's an Argo, Siren, you may soul boss one to stand her. Pretty solid because, like I said before, she doesn't require the starter to search the order, but on the bright side, she allows you to search your order for free, which you can then place, and you can grab any of them. You can play a Karthus Ode, or you can grab our extra order support card in the form of Karthus Orcus, but hey, it's a free order to hand, and on top of that, if you did find a way to get her on rear guard, you could end up having a column restand when you're using the same column as her stands. But most of the time, you're not going to use that because she also would eat into the soul if you did have her in the main deck, which is why we soul run her as a 1 of in the red deck, none in the main deck, because she can cause resource problems, so that's it for her. Moving on to our grade 2s, we have 4 copies of Boar Briny Dragon. He's a grade 2 with Intercept, 5k shield, 10k base, auto drop zone when a tiding card will be put into your order zone. If you do not have a copy of this on your rear guard, combo boss 1 to call it to rear guard circle. Pretty solid because the second you hit grade 2, who the grade 2 can also search a tiding order, by the way, you can just play the order and then immediately use the CB you got from your opponent damaging you last turn, call itself back, and boom, you got rear guard pressure. And then auto when he's placed on rear guard from anywhere by any means, it can be from deck, it can be from hand, it can be from damage zone, it can be from drop zone, it can be by effects or just by normal. Put a tiding order from your bind zone to drop zone that tells you what the tiding order is supposed to do, and he'll get 10,000 power for the turn. Cool. 20k base second he's placed by putting a tiding card into your drop zone, and again he can superior call himself just by simply putting a tiding card into your order zone. Again, it's specifically put, not play, so if you end up cheating it out via the main grade 3 skill, you can feel free to still superior call. So 4 copies of Boar Briny Dragon, very good grade 2 support card that pretty much makes it so he's always on the board. That takes us to our last grade 2 in the deck, one of in the rad deck and in the main deck of Argo, Siren, Refc. Grade 2 Intercept 5k shield, 10k base, auto when this unit is placed by riding from Argo, Siren, Arima. Reveal a grade 3 card Argo, Siren in the card name from the ride deck. To search your deck for up to one tiding card, reveal it, put it to hand, shuffle your deck. I kind of hate how the fact that it's literally verbatim the exact skill the grade 1 does, but again, it's a good skill. It gets you a free tiding order, which you can then, again, most of the time I just pick for both the grade 1 and the grade 2 to search for Karthus Ode and play it, and then typically Boar Briny comes out from the grade 2's one because I probably have CB at that point to add for pressure and a little bit of board presence. As for her second ability, continuous rear guard. If your Vanguard's an Argo Siren, she gets boost. So if you found a way to call her to rear guard, that's great for you. You have a 10k booster, but this deck has no way to do that, and you don't really need to worry about that because you have plenty of boosters already in the form of, you know, Melisson, Prize Trident, and Sinnoh. But if you did need to take an option such as Spiritual Body Condensation Superior Call, you can feel free to. But one of Refc in the red deck, you don't really need her in the main deck because again, you already got plenty of boosters you would rather have on board instead. That takes us over to our grade 3s. 4 copies of Kianos Orcos, grade 3 set order, so orders play put to order zone, same cost as the grade 1 play it by soul blasting 1 card if your Vanguard's an Argo Siren. Auto when it's put into the order zone, you search your deck for 1 Teal Dragon call to rear guard and shuffle the deck. So that's a free rear guard call, and again, if for the record, for those of you that don't know, like how Orphis Regis does it for the Orphis Shadow Army deck, if you were to put an order into the order zone via an effect, you don't have to pay the cost because it's putting it there, not playing it, which means you could therefore play another order that turn, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But essentially that means you can bypass the Soul Blast cost, and anything that just says when it's put into order zone would still proc. Meaning this gets you a superior call of any dragon. Typically you don't call this, but you call this thing instead, which is Stunning Wave Dragon. We'll go over him in a minute. So that way you can superior call Boar Briny Dragon because the card was placed into order zone and get 2 rear guards for the price of 1. Following that, auto when this card is bound from the order zone by the ability of your grade 3 or greater Vanguard, Argo Siren in the card name. If your opponent's Vanguard is also grade 3 or greater, choose one of your Vanguards and it gets auto Vanguard at the battle if this unit attacked into anything. If this unit did not stand by a card ability this turn, stand it and increase or decrease its drive to 1 until end of turn. So cool, it gives the Vanguard the ability to stand, all by simply being bound. The only downside is that it requires your opponent's Vanguard to be a grade 3 or greater, so if you want to try to bully your opponent down with drive checks from Van, you can't if they're at grade 2, but again, it's a free superior call from deck the second you play this order, not to mention the fact that it does give the Vanguard a free restand skill and only costs 1 Soul Blast to use it, so it's not the worst thing in the world, which is why we have it in at 4 copies. You don't necessarily need it at 4, you could definitely afford to run it at 3, and same with Karthus Ode, but I prefer to have them both at 4 to maximize the amount of uses I have of them. Then we move on to Stunning Wave Dragon, a very stunning wave form of support card. See what I did there? Area's grade 3 jumpers on 13k base, auto placed on rear guard circle from the deck or from hand, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. If your Vanguard's an Argo Siren in his card name, this unit gets 5,000 power for the turn, and by either CBing 1 or Energy Blasting 3, you draw a card. Okay. most of your energy is going to go to your main grade 3, but the main grade 3 also costs 3 energy, so pretty much you're going to swap between these two with the energy blasting skill. But being able to draw is nice, and again, being placed from either deck or from hand by any means, as long as the Vanguard's an Argo Siren, giving it a free 5k regardless if you pay a cost or not, is good, so he's always an 18k. Then auto rearguard once per turn when he attacks into anything, regardless of what grade the opponent's Vanguard's at, and regardless of what he's attacking into, you may have him get 5k for the turn. If you do at the end of the turn, he dies. On the downside, he dies. On the upside, he's a free 23k swing the turn he's placed, non-mandatory, no cost restricted behind that, and that extra 5k from the on-attack ability is not mandatory, meaning if you don't want him to gain 5k because you're afraid of him dying, you don't have to. All around, makes for a really good grade 3. He gets you hand cards for cheap cost. He's a 23k swing the turn he's placed with literally no extra backup behind that, and also the fact that he can open up your board, meaning next turn you can feel free to use Keranos Orcus again in order to get more rearguard pressure. So 4 cops Stunning Wave. Then we move on to our last card in the deck, 3 in the main deck, 1 in the right deck of Argo Siren Calliopeia. Grade 3, turns right, Persona Ride 13k base, continues Vanguard Circle. During your turn, if your bind zone has 1 or more different Tiding cards in it, this unit gets 5,000 power. If you have 2 or more different Tiding cards, your entire front row gets 5k instead of just this unit. All around, really easy to pull off because at least when the Vanguard attacks, you're going to be able to get 1 Tiding card to Order Zone, so she'll be at least an 18k on her own. But if you end up getting 2 cards in there, basically meaning your opponent's Vanguard's at grade 3 or greater, automatically you have plus 10k, or not plus 10k, you get plus 5k to front row. So you have half a Persona Ride active. And then active Vanguard once per turn, ditch a hand card, choose a Tiding card from your drop zone, and you put it into your Order Zone. So the best part is you can just ditch a Tiding card and then immediately put that Tiding card into Order Zone, such as this one, and then immediately use the skill, search your deck for a Tier Dragon, call this, do the draw skill, whatever, and because a Tiding card was put into your Order Zone, Boar Briny. And it's also a fun combo you can do with Calliopeia's third skill, Auto Vanguard, once per turn. When this unit attacks into a Vanguard, counter boss 1, choose a Tiding from your Order Zone, bind it, then your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater, energy boss 3, and you bind 2 Tidings instead of 1, which all around is really good. You can either use double Cutthroat's Odes to restand 2 from a rear guards, or technically just a column, or you could use what I do, 1 Cutthroat's Ogue and then 1 Orcos in order to stand both the Vanguard and the rear guard to have extra drive checks and extra attack pressure. The thing about that is, obviously, that gives your front row 5k, but what you could do one turn is, bind the orders from one turn, and then on your next turn, Persona Ride, don't Persona Ride, preferably Persona Ride, but then you ditch a card. Let's say you don't have any orders in your Order Zone right now, you play Keranos Orcos, you search your deck for this dragon, you draw, you do your skills, then you use this thing's skill Superior, call itself, and then you put one of your Tidings that is currently in your bind zone into your drop zone, give him 10k, then finally ditch a card for Calliopeia to put the Order Zone you just put into your drop zone back into your Order Zone. So if you didn't have enough orders before, now you have enough to do your double restand. All around, Calliopeia is a very solid grade 3. She adds decent numbers to the front row for offensive pressure. I'd rather this be a free 10k to front row, but it is what it is. Not to mention the fact that she does at least allow 2 units to stand at once, whether it's 2 rear guards or a Vanguard and a rear guard. And she allows you to play an order technically for free, because that you could just, like I said earlier, ditch an order and then just replay that order immediately. So you have Calliopeia in the main deck, one of them in the right deck. She could be a little bit better when it comes to giving power to units, but otherwise she does her job really well with making the deck consistent. And without further ado, that's it for this one. I hope all of you enjoyed. Honestly, this deck is fun to play. You get to play with the Battle Siren line, but then have dragons supporting them, and then bully down your opponent with consecutive multi-attacks, whether it's 4 attacks a turn or 5 attacks a turn, and get pretty decent numbers out of it too. Honestly, the worst attack in the deck will always be the Vanguard. It'll always be the Vanguard if it restands and you don't see front triggers. Either way, I'm going to end here. I hope all of you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join us on Twitch, and I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to set up your Vanguards.